Hello and welcome back to Tobacco Road and Abroad. My name's Gareth Parsons, joined by Aidan Moore, and we have a lot to break down for you guys today. At least when it comes to the college baseball world, we had a lot of really interesting storylines. We're going to break down scores, controversies, just general weird takes we have on it. So, if that sounds something like you're interested, please continue to listen. So, Aidan, is there anything? Yeah, is there anything you want to start off with? I know we have a lot to choose from here when it
There's
comes
a
to.
lot of interesting storylines coming out of regionals weekend, a lot of upsets, a lot of fraud checks, and let's just jump into it. Let's starting off in the Nashville regional. We had Louisville coming out as the regional winner. Um, Wright State came out and beat Vanderbilt, which was surprising to say the least. So initially, Vanderbilt beat Wright State 4-3, but then Vanderbilt proceeded to lose to Louisville. In the elimination bracket, Vanderbilt faced Wright State again, and Wright State was able to come out with the win 5-4, leading to the championship of the region being Louisville and Wright State. Louisville took care of business, winning 6-0. Louisville comes out of this region, which we weren't necessarily too high on Louisville coming into this weekend. We thought they were slowing down and really ran out of gas, but able to catch it some good wins and go on a little bit of a streak, not losing a single game. And coming out of the Nashville regional, they now host a super regional against Miami, which bring us to the Hattiesburg regional. Gareth, do you want to do a little analysis of that regional?
Yeah, I definitely. So Hattiesburg Regional, it had some interesting storylines. I mean, first off, on day one, we had double upsets in Miami, and sorry, Miami's not an upset, and we had an upset in Columbia, almost run ruling Southern Miss. That certainly was a surprise to me. But for the surprises for me come in the elimination bracket. Southern Miss beating Alabama and then getting their revenge against Columbia, and then beating Miami, run ruling Miami the next day, and that had me feeling like, man, the Southern Miss might be able to do it. And I don't mean that in like an underdog sense. Like Southern Miss is a very solid baseball team. Sun Belt baseball. I'll get into more on that later, but Sun Belt baseball is a little bit more of a force to be reckoned with than one would think. But ultimately, Miami ends up winning that regional. Miami, who 3 or 4 weeks ago was a trendy team. Like people were talking about them possibly getting a regional, but after they beat NC State and then the day three game against NC State got rained out, they kind of cooled off, got bounced first round of the ACC tournament. But Miami's found a way to turn around. They're very similar from what people have been saying to that 2021 NC State team where they're getting their star players back. They were already hot, but they now have their star players back from an injury. And on top of that, they've got guys who are hot and they're like, that's contagious. That's going to help get these, hurt stars back into form easier. So Miami's definitely going to be a team to look out for going into the Louisville regional. Not sure who I have winning that yet. I'll have to decide by the time we get back to it. But Hattiesburg Regional was incredibly entertaining to watch. And if you missed it, I'm sorry. You missed out on an absolute show on that one.
Moving over to the Austin regional, we had another little bit of an upset going on. Uh,
Frauds.
UT San Antonio was able to come away with the win, beating out Texas twice. Texas kind of got checked in the second day where they were in the winners bracket. UTSA won 9-7. That made Texas go down to the elimination bracket, and Texas was able to take care of business against Kansas State pretty handedly, 15-8. But San Antonio was just able to close it out on the first day of championship play in the regional, and San Antonio won 7-4, eliminating Texas from the tournament. This was pretty surprising. I was still pretty high on Texas, and a lot of people were. And I knew San Antonio was definitely a team, like a lookout team, but in a regional with Texas and Kansas State, I had my doubts, but San Antonio absolutely took care of business day one, winning 10-2. Uh, I think San Antonio is the team to look out for right now. They're playing with house money, and right now, I think San Antonio could shock some more people in these next couple days.
Speaking of teams who are on, generational runs right now, the Murray State Racers came out of the Oxford, Mississippi regional. The Murray State Racers advancing to a super regional for the first time in program history. I think they've been to the College World Series before. No, I don't mean Omaha, but they've been to the College World Series before. But I don't think they'd won a game prior. But no, that's something they can check off their list. The Oxford Regional. Funny enough, I actually, despite working on a swim meet 30 hours that one weekend, I was actually able to catch the games because it was on the TVs there, and it certainly was fun to watch. You had Murray State upsetting Ole Miss in the first game. Georgia Tech obviously winning handedly over Western Kentucky. Then Murray State upsetting Georgia Tech. And then Georgia Tech then unfortunately being eliminated by Ole Miss. Georgia Tech was a team that worked around. They were hot coming out of ACC play. And then from there, Murray State then loses to Ole Miss 19-8. And then Murray State took care of business 12-11 against Ole Miss, thwarting a massive comeback. But, I'm not necessarily as high on Murray State as I am with UTSA, but honestly, it's a team that can make a little bit of noise. Duke at times this season has underperformed, but that Duke team's scorching hot that they're coming up against. But we'll get more on that later.
Yeah, I was really surprised about that Murray State win. Honestly, if I'm being honest, I checked out after like the seventh inning because Murray State was just winning so handedly. Fans were leaving the stadium. I was like, okay, time to look at other games right now. But Ole Miss was able to like come back it pretty handedly. Like it was looking confident for them. I had to tune back in, but Murray State able to take care of business. Just got too big of a lead for Ole Miss to overcome. Ole Miss really dug themselves into a hole. Uh, their pitching game in the beginning of the game just was not going well for them, and Ole Miss just kind of caught sleeping at the wheel, if you will. And Murray State was able to capitalize on it, and they move on to the Durham Super Regional with Duke coming away with the win in the Athens Regional. This was a really interesting regional going on. Georgia took care of business with Binghamton, Binghamton, and I have trouble pronouncing that name, but Georgia winning 20-4, going up against Duke day two, losing 6-3, and then Georgia getting eliminated day two with losing to Oklahoma State 11-9. And day three losing 11-9, and Georgia just was not able to close it out against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's bats were just absolutely flying, scoring 11 runs to Georgia's 9. But at the end of the day, the nightcap, Duke was able to pull away 3-2. Oklahoma State just was not able to capitalize on their momentum at the bat going into the later half of the day, kind of slowing down a little bit, and Duke was able to capitalize on it. With that, Duke moves on, and they host the Super Regional against Murray State. I'm pretty high on Duke right now, and I think almost a shoe-in going into Omaha, in my opinion.
Up next, we have the Tallahassee Regional. This, unlike most other regionals, was actually pretty much chalk. Like, compared to the other regionals, this was a pretty boring regional. Florida State winning their first game against their in-state rival, not rival, but like against in-state school Bethune-Cookman. Mississippi State won their first game against Northeastern University out of Boston. Then losers bracket Northeastern knocked out Bethune-Cookman off a walk-off. Northeastern then finally in the losers bracket then took Mississippi State to the brink after Mississippi State lost to Florida State. Mississippi State ended up winning that one on a go-ahead run. Then from there, Florida State then beat Mississippi State for a second time, 5-2 to win the regional. And when I say boring, it wasn't boring, but I just mean comparatively to the other regionals, it was just very straightforward. So,
Yeah, nothing really like out of the ordinary in this regional. Florida State remains hot and definitely a team to look out for. They're now going to Corvallis as Oregon State won the Corvallis regional and now hosts the Super Regional. This one definitely had some interesting shenanigans going on. Oregon State, day one, just immediately playing from behind with losing to St. Mary's in the uh, like the start of the regional, and from then they were playing behind, but just did not let up and really showed some fight. After losing 6-4. Oregon State then had to face TCU in the elimination bracket, and Oregon State was able to produce, winning 7-2. After that, Oregon State got a little bit of revenge on St. Mary's, winning 20-3, absolutely handedly. Now going into the championship half of the tournament, they had to face USC. Took care of business the first game right after their win against St. Mary's and was able to win 14-1. Then final day on the second, Oregon State able to win 9-0. I really liked Oregon State's fight in this, just not counting themselves out after a tough loss against St. Mary's and just went on like from then it was just pretty much game on for them. They played perfect and continued a really big hot streak that I feel like could definitely continue going into the Super Regionals. I'm looking out for Oregon State this coming weekend.
okay. I'll let you take the Chapel Hill Regional. So should I hit Baton Rouge then?
Yeah, you can take Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge Regional had some drama all around. First day, LSU beats Little Rock 7-0. Dallas Baptist beats Rhode Island 6-2. From there, LSU beats Dallas Baptist 12-0 to advance to the regional final. Then from there, in the losers bracket, Little Rock dropped 22 runs on Rhode Island. Then from there, they upset the heavily favored Dallas Baptist 6-8. They then go on to upset LSU later that night, 10-4, but end up falling short the next day after holding a 5-1 lead, in which LSU came back to win 10-6. Pretty exciting regional. I was hoping Little Rock could pull it off, but it was an entertaining regional all around.
I was really rooting for Little Rock. I thought they had the potential to really close it out, but just unable to overcome the batting performance of LSU in that later half of the game. And also, once like things started getting like serious for LSU, that's when their pitching game really started to pick up again. Only allowing one run in like the final like 4 innings of the game. LSU really kind of started taking it themselves a little bit more seriously and started to really find themselves. So I have my concerns with LSU coming out of this regional. I'm still pretty high on them, but they've proven that if they fall asleep at the wheel, definitely anybody can take them down. And LSU needs to play perfect if they want to continue making a run into Omaha. But that leads us into the Chapel Hill Regional. and pretty much there was really nothing like too out of the ordinary, in my opinion. UNC took care of business most of the time. On the second game of day uh, three, where Oklahoma was coming off their win against Nebraska, UNC lost 9-5 against Oklahoma. I wasn't panicking too much. Um, Obviously, Oklahoma was coming off a really, really dominant performance against Nebraska, and they still had some of that momentum coming in. They were still warm, and UNC, like, up until then, had no losses whatsoever. They were continuing in the winners bracket. They got a solid win against Holy Cross, a solid win against Oklahoma before. This loss to Oklahoma didn't really have me like too worried. I figured they would like take care of business the next day, and they did. Winning 14-4. That was just absolute domination. It seemed like at every opportunity, like UNC was just hitting them out of the stadium, home runs galore, and seemed like they were able to really rattle Oklahoma's pitcher going into that last game. And I'm still confident in UNC. This loss that they had, if I'm a UNC fan, I'm not taking that too seriously. Like, it was a close game. Oklahoma was hot, pretty much showing their best performance. And after that, like, it was all like I knew, like, hey, like, if we start off hot in this final game, I'm not worried about anything. And UNC just able to take care of business and move on. So yeah.
Up next, we have the fraud regional, two fraud regionals. Up next, we have the Eugene regional. This one's one where Aiden and I were on this clowning early. The antics Aiden and I put on for this regional started very early in the weekend with Oregon losing 6-5 to Utah Valley. Obviously, Cal Poly dropped their first game. Then from there, in the losers bracket, Cal Poly would then go on to beat Oregon 10-8. Then would unfortunately go to knock out Utah Valley 7-6. And then the regional final, Arizona would take care of business 14-0 against Cal Poly, and a very just kind of convincing win, which is pretty much opposed to how they won the first day, where they won 3-2 in an absolute just nail biter. So entertaining regional, but kind of the fireworks were over after the end of day two. Like, I mean, not saying the games weren't interesting. Like, I definitely wanted Cal Poly to win that regional just for, like, it'll be fun seeing Cal Poly back on top.
Mm-hmm.
But the main major, front page news happened within the first, 3 games of the regional, with Oregon being the first team eliminated from their own regional. So that being said, I'm going to turn
If
it over
only
to
there was
you.
somebody that could predict that Oregon was fraudulent. If only there were two people that knew this from the beginning.
Had
I'm
been
not
saying
saying
this all season.
all season. Like, I'm sorry, Oregon. What happened? Like, I'm not saying that this was an easy regional, but like with any legitimate team, I think they would be able to take care of business. But this is just going to go into a conversation we're going to have it later in this podcast. Like, Big Ten is a little bit fraudulent in our opinion, and we're going to have to bring this back up going into a regional that we skimmed over, the LA regional. UCLA was able to come out on top. Granted, did not lose a game, but I'm sorry. They're going to be going up against UT San Antonio, and I'm sorry. The Big Ten is on fraud alert, in my opinion. UCLA was able to win day one, 19-4 against Fresno State. Solid win. Arizona State took down UC Irvine 4-2. I was high on UC Irvine, but they started to produce. UC Irvine in the elimination bracket took down Fresno State 8-3. which made them face Arizona State again because Arizona State lost to UCLA 11-5. UC Irvine goes up against Arizona State, wins 11-6, going into the latter half of the day on the first. UC Irvine was hot, and there were times, like honestly, this game was a lot closer than maybe the score might indicate. But UCLA able to come away 8-5 against UC Irvine. I'm not saying that like UCLA is the level of fraudulent at Oregon is. But I'm just saying, like, I got the Big Ten on watch right now, and I know Garrett does too, because he has some hot takes he wants to share. But UCLA comes away, is able to win the LA Regional and host the Super Regional against UT San Antonio. I don't know. I'm looking out if I'm a UCLA fan right now, personally. But moving back down, do you want to go into the Clemson Regional?
Clemson regional, another regional of, I don't want to call them frauds. I just think they underperformed. Clemson obviously has an explosive upside that we've seen all season, but unfortunately we didn't see it here. So Clemson won the first game against in-state rival UC Upstate.
Rival in quotations.
Rival in quote. I just said in-state rival. That's why the rival in quotations. West Virginia beating Kentucky in the first game, then West Virginia upsetting Clemson in the second round, advancing to the regional final, then dropping down to the elimination bracket. Kentucky takes care of business against UC Upstate, then embarrasses Clemson 16-4, and then from there it loses to West Virginia 13-12 in an absolute thriller. I think this was a really, really, really entertaining bracket. I unfortunately didn't get to watch as many, I unfortunately didn't get to watch all the games in this regional, but I would have loved to. So
moving over to the Conway Regional, another team we had on fraud alert, and we knew this going in. Florida. I'm not saying you were expected to win this, but the supposed SEC dominance was really quiet. The silence was deafening, as they say on Twitter. Like, the silence was deafening out of Florida. Coastal Carolina able to win against Fairfield 10-2. ECU takes down Florida day one, 11-6. That puts Fairfield and Florida into the elimination bracket. Florida was able to take care of business 17-2. Coastal Carolina played ECU and dominated 18-7. That put ECU back into Florida's elimination bracket. And this is where a lot of people, like like a lot of people expected, okay, Florida lost one. There's no way they're going to lose to ECU again. ECU able to win in even more dominant fashion than the week before. ECU before won 11-6. This time they won 11-4. ECU's bats were just absolutely flying, and the pitching game was on point. And just going to show that like ECU is a team that is not to be slept on, especially like if you're in the Carolinas, you know this. Like ECU is a team you do not sleep on when it comes to baseball. And then ECU, unfortunately, in a close game, but one that really was a pitcher's duel. Coastal Carolina able to get one run against ECU, and that was enough to win 1-0. Coastal Carolina got that one run in the eighth inning, and ECU was just unfortunately unable to respond. Coastal Carolina comes away and is able to move on to the Auburn Regional, which, Gareth, do you want to talk about what went down in Auburn? I know there's some moments you want to highlight.
Auburn Regional, unfortunately, State didn't make it out of it. I thought they would have. I thought they had a chance. But unfortunately, by the time NC State came to meet Auburn, the team was just kind of battered. Both of the top two seeds in this regional struggled in their first games. Auburn did eventually get the win, but Auburn struggled early with Central Connecticut State. NC State got behind way early against Stetson. NC State's pitcher gave up 7 runs on just like 20 pitches in the first inning. And then from there, it was just kind of downhill. Then from there, Auburn would then struggle with Stetson as well. Stetson, I think, led for most of that game as well. And then Auburn had to use a late flurry to win. Down to the elimination bracket, NC State wins 12-0 against Central Connecticut State. Like, that game was over before it started. Then comes game 2 of the elimination game. NC State was down big. About midway through the game, it was 8-5 or 8-4. And Elliot Avent decides to, and whoops, did not mean to, gotta mute that. Elliot Avent, out of nowhere, decides to bring in Ryder Woodson, who, for those of you who don't know, has not had a single plate appearance all year for NC State. In his first collegiate plate appearance, he goes yard, cuts the lead from 8-5. He comes back up to bat in the next inning. His second ever collegiate at bat is a grand fucking slam to send NC State into the lead. Now, I will say, initially it was not ruled a grand slam. It was ruled a triple with 3 RBIs, but after further review, they realized that the ball hit the top of the yellow, which means in college baseball, there's, like, I'm sure you guys know, like in the MLB, there's varying fence heights, but in college baseball, if the fence is above a certain height, they paint the top yellow so you can see the ball hit it. Like, if it hits over the top of the wall, it counts, but it bounced on top of the wall and bounced back into play. After a review, they ruled it a home run, but all I'll say is a lot of NC State fans, and I'm sure I'll do NCAA now, we'll go into deeper breakdowns of our own teams once the schedule's finally ended, because there's some things I want to say about the coach and what people think about the coach. But my only complaint about Elliot Avent, Ryder Woodson didn't play all year, and his first collegiate at bat, bro pimps a home run 450 dead center, like no doubter. And by pimping, I mean like flips the bat and everything. Like that, he knew that shit was gone from the second it hit the bat. Now, the grand slam hit the top of the wall. It barely made it out of there, but still, like, you're telling me this guy's been on the bench all year? Like, come on. But I will say NC State would then go on to win this. Although they were just, this NC State Stetson game was weird. NC State then was like up. Stetson then fired back with 4 runs, and NC State hit an inside the park home run off of, it was an unfortunate play. The Stetson center fielder ran into the wall, completely dislocating his shoulder. It looked pretty gruesome on the replay. So I'm not taking any relish in that inside the park home run. Like, even the state player who hit it looked like he felt really bad. And like the Stetson player is like, no, dude, you didn't you hit a nice ball into the gap, and our guy wasn't, like, he didn't see the wall. He wasn't paying attention. They're like, it's not his fault either. But like, this is what happens. I mean, similarly, NC State had an outfielder a few seasons ago, Josh Hogue, had something similar happen to him where he collided with the wall and broke his leg and had to relearn how to walk. So I'm not taking any relish in that injury at all. I will say it was frustrating. It happened in one of NC State's better players 2 years ago. So prayers up I forget the guy's name, but I will say thoughts and prayers out to this guy for a speedy recovery. Mm-hmm. As that Stetson team was a force to be reckoned with. They came out and they fought. But from there, NC State moved on to play Auburn. And by the time NC State got to Auburn, like, NC State held Auburn scoreless for the majority of the game, and then came the 6th inning where it just kind of all fell apart. NC State was down to like their last 2 pitchers, so like they couldn't really pull the starter when they needed to, and it caused this kind of snowball effect. Now, I will say the one thing that's nice about this Auburn game is for the final out, and I'll get more into this later in the video, NC State has this pitcher named Willardson. He was kind of the 1-2 punch with Sam Highfall his freshman year. Like, this guy was, like, when they're talking about great ACC pitchers, how like UNC's Jake Knapp, like this guy was Jake Knapp good. I forget exactly how he hurt. I think it might have been with the USA baseball team. He's been hurt ever since NC State's 2021 run. He hasn't been able to pitch. His doctor cleared him to throw 1 at bat. and he came in and got the final out for NC State, striking out the Auburn batter. So while they did get blown out, and it was kind of a sad game. It was kind of a nice moment to get him to see. He got to end his baseball career on and up. He got to end it with a strikeout, which I feel like that was for everything he had done for the state's program prior to the injury. I feel like that's the least we could have done for him is to get him let him get the final strikeout. So I will say, for not having thrown a pitch in 3 years, that changeup that he got that guy on was fucking nasty. So I will say, hats off to him. Hats off to Auburn. It was a tough regional for both of us, but they were able to find a way to get it done. And I think Auburn's a solid team. I will say I am higher on Auburn than I was after watching them play. But I'm also higher on Stetson. But after further research, I've come to the realization Stetson in previous years I was not familiar with your game. I am familiar with your game now, Stetson, after seeing what you've done to not only state but then almost did to Auburn. So hats off to Auburn, solid regional, fun to watch. So that's
Hats
all.
off also to Stetson.
Hats off to Stetson.
But moving on, we have the Knoxville regional. This was a very interesting regional. Had Tennessee winning against Miami of Ohio, and Cincinnati beat Wake Forest day one, 11-6. Wake Forest took it personally after that, going on a little bit of a tirade, barely eking out against Miami of Ohio, winning 14-3 in the elimination bracket. Wake Forest then able to have a dominant win against Cincinnati, as Cincinnati lost to Tennessee 10-6. Wake Forest returns the favor and wins against Cincinnati 10-3. This sets up the championship, with Wake Forest going up against Tennessee on the first game. Wake Forest able to win 7-6. This is where things really started getting interesting. Wake Forest going in the championship game to against Tennessee. Wake Forest starts off the game pretty it's looking pretty good. Wake Forest is up 2-0. Eventually in the third inning, Tennessee is able to get a run. It's 2-1 at this point. Fourth inning, Wake Forest just kind of falls apart and tries to play catch up after that. But at that point, it's just too much. Tennessee able to get 7 runs at the bottom of the fourth. Wake Forest tried coming back, scoring 3 unanswered runs in 2 innings, scoring 2 runs in the fifth, 1 run in the sixth. But then after that, Tennessee just kind of starts taking care of business and is able to beat Wake Forest 11-5. I was really surprised with Wake Forest's performance in this regional. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of writ them off. I thought after they lost to Cincinnati, I thought with that Miami of Ohio game, I thought Miami of Ohio was going to win, but Wake Forest able to kind of prove some doubters wrong and make a decent run. But Tennessee is the one that ends up taking this game and moving on to Fayetteville to the Super Regionals. But that leads us to the last regional, the Fayetteville, Arkansas Regional. Arkansas won that pretty handedly, kind of taking care of business at every chance they got. Beat North Dakota State 6-2, then beat Creighton 12-1. Faced Creighton again in the championship game, and Arkansas was able to win again 8-3. Want to give a quick shout out though to North Dakota State, because not gonna lie, I thought they were going to lose every game. They did not look that impressive, but able to eliminate Kansas. I was surprised by that, and also put up a pretty solid performance in the elimination game against Creighton. So shout out to North Dakota State, put up a pretty valiant effort. Definitely one of my slept-on overperformers of the tournament so far. But Arkansas is able to win that. And that pretty much wraps up all regional play. Gareth, do you want to go into predictions for Super Regionals?
Yeah, predictions for super regionals. I'll start out with the Louisville Super Regional. Louisville, who, if you talked to me in March about who I thought was going to be in Omaha, I would have said Louisville. If you then talked to me again in April who I thought was going to be in Omaha, I would not have said Louisville. Louisville was one of the hottest teams to start the year, but back-to-back conference what's it called? Conference series losses to NC State, and I forget who they played after NC State, but it was back-to-back conference losses. They kind of appeared to have sputtered out. They picked up a few good wins here and there. I think they might have won in Tallahassee, but from there, they didn't really have much momentum coming into the tournament. A lot of people didn't think they deserved to make it by the end of it, but alas, they made the tournament, made the most out of it, took out the number, not an elimination. Well, they took out the number one seed, not in the elimination game, but honestly solid. Miami, similar story. Peaked later in the season, but then they kind of ran out of gas. Two teams that have kind of found a resurgence of life. For me, just thinking about it, this is going to be a tough one for me. Just give me a second. I want to think this through here. Louisville, I will say their pitching staff has struggled at times this year, having a absolute staggering 20 walks in a game against NC State. So at their worst, the pitching staff can be a little suspect, but that for me, from what I've watched them, that has not been the case here in the regional. But so Miami, similar, like I said, similar story to the 2021 NC State team. All their players are coming back from injury. They're hot. Like that's going to kind of help get those players not only back into it, but just get them hot as well. Now, when it comes to the season, I do not believe they met in season, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, Louisville and Miami did not meet the season. Louisville and Miami did not meet the season at all. I was going to kind of look to that, see kind of what got keyed into it. But for me, if I'm being honest, this Louisville team's righted the ship in a fantastic way. So for me, I've got Louisville winning this. They've been pretty solid, not necessarily down the stretch, but they lost first round of the ACC tournament as well. But I think they're going to right the ship. I think they've got the momentum going in the right direction. And on top of that, I think they have the better squad than Miami. Their starting pitchers are pretty good. And I will say their bats, they've got big bats when they need it. They can get hot. That NC State series in mid-April, that the day 3 game against NC State, I will say that day 3 game against NC State, that was the first time Louisville had not scored at least 10 runs in a game. And that was 3/4 the way through the season. I will say the potential is there. The potential is there. They've got explosive upside, but similar to college basketball, it doesn't matter if you were a hit or miss team during the season. If you're hot, you're hot. So I've got Louisville in this one. I feel like they proved more obviously Miami, it was, huge. They're one of the underdogs in that regional. But in my opinion, I think Louisville proved more, beating Vanderbilt in pretty convincing fashion. And Vanderbilt's a team where they're never out of it. But Louisville, they jumped ahead. They stayed ahead. Vanderbilt tried to make a little push at the end. But even then, even their inexperienced pitchers were putting in overtime to beat Vandy. So for me, I've got Louisville winning the Louisville Super Regional. Sorry, a little bit yammer there. I just want to talk through my logic in my head when I said it. So I got Louisville winning that regional.
It's good. It's good.
Which Super Regional do you want to take?
I mean, I follow your opinion with the Louisville regional. I think Louisville's going to move on in that one. Bringing it over to the LA Super Regional, I got UTSA. I'm not going to lie. I feel like they're hot. I'm not too necessarily sold on Big Ten baseball teams right now. And UTSA is just coming off hot, winning against Texas and having a pretty like dominant performance in the Austin Regional. I feel like they can really bring this momentum into LA, and if I'm LA, UCLA, I'm looking out for UTSA. I got San Antonio winning this one in three. I think it's gonna go throughout the. I think uh, San Antonio is going to get the first one. UCLA is going to come back in a game two, and I got San Antonio finishing it out in game three.
I do as well. I'm not incredibly sold on this. Uh, Excuse me. I'm not incredibly sold on this UCLA team. Meanwhile, this UTSA team has shown flashes all year. They didn't get a chance to play many big names in baseball, but believe it or not, back on March 18th, not only do we get a foreshadowing of the regional, um, mathematically looking at it now, UTSA has swept Texas this season. They beat them back in March, and they beat them again. And I think just for me, UCLA, perennial baseball power, but I think the Big Ten's rubbing off on them a little bit. And that's not to take away from anything that they did in the Pac 12. Like, they were a baseball powerhouse in the Pac 12, but they're in the Big Ten now. They're there for basketball and football. I think baseball is going to unfortunately, take a back burner, which is tough for me to say because, it's when you think of college baseball, UCLA is one of the names you think of. It's their story program, just the way they play. They're well known. College baseball is better when UCLA is good. But in my opinion, UCLA, I think they kind of were able to coast by on the fact that the Big Ten wasn't as good. And just the Big Ten has that power conference status despite having a down year. So for me, I'm of similar mind. I got UTSA in three and 2-1 in this series.
Moving on, let's talk about the Durham Super Regional. Not gonna lie, I have Duke winning this one. I think they're going to sweep Murray State. I don't see this series going to an extra game. I think if Duke is able to capitalize on home field advantage, playing in Durham, and really having kind of the momentum that they have coming out of Athens, I feel like they can take care of Murray State. Murray State, I like a lot, but I just don't, I have too many red flags, letting up at times against Ole Miss. Not saying that like that's a bad thing because Ole Miss is still a very dominant team, but do they have the ability to stop Duke from going on a run if the lead isn't like 9 runs? That's
Yeah.
that's a question that I have. Like if the game is within like 3 runs, Duke is very liable to like go on a big run against Murray State, and I just don't see Murray State being able to stop the bats of Duke.
I agree. While I want to have faith in Murray State, I think Duke's just on a tear right now, and it's obviously having home field advantage. I think it's just gonna be too much for him. I agree. I've got a sweep here in mind as well. So moving on to the next regional, that was what regional was that? That was just the
That was the Durham Super Regional.
Durham Super Regional. Up next, I'll let you. Oh, Corvallis Regional. Up next, we got the Corvallis Super Regional. Oregon State, despite the Pac-12 not being around anymore, storied baseball program, really solid team, took care of business. At times, Florida State has been fraud checked and they have big bats at times. But in my opinion, um, I'm going to go with it here. I think Florida State's actually going to lose this one. They're going to drop this to Oregon State. I've got Oregon State winning this in a 2-1 series win. I think Florida State will win game 2, but I think Oregon State's going to sandwich them with the game 1 and game 3 win. Any thoughts?
I disagree with you. I really like Florida State. I feel like they've had a tough run at times over the season, but I still think they're fundamentally a very solid team. And this might be some of my ACC bias showing, but Oregon can get can be taken down at times. Like we've seen this in the Corvallis Regional. Granted, after they lost to St. Mary's College, they were able to just absolutely go on a run. I don't think they're going to be granted such leeway against Florida State, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, just the competition in that regional, I believe, just was not the tip of the spear. And I feel like Florida State can really jump out against Oregon State. So I have them beating Oregon State in that super regional.
Thanks. I definitely can see a world in which that happens. Up next we have the. I'll let you take this one since this is yours.
Chapel Hill Regional, I got UNC, 100%. I like Arizona a lot, and I think they're definitely a team to not take lightly. But I just think UNC's just been on too much of a run this latter half of the season, taking the ACC tournament, taking it to FSU, winning the series 2-1. I'm really high on the Tar Heels right now, and I like I like Arizona a lot, able to pretty much completely dominate in the Eugene regional. But I just have concerns about that regional. Like obviously, I'm not too necessarily high on Oregon, Utah Valley, not the most high competition, and I had Cal Poly winning that uh, regional, but it's not a surprise that Arizona won, in my opinion. And I just think UNC has what it takes. They have the better pitching and the better bats, and I see them winning it in 3.
Yeah, I agree. I've got Carolina winning this. I think they're just the better team. Obviously, no slight to Arizona. I think they can maybe pick up a win, but outside of that, I've got Carolina winning this regional easy.
Moving on, do you want to talk about the Baton Rouge Super
Yeah.
Regional?
Yep, I got the Baton Rouge Super Regional. So Baton Rouge Super Regional between West Virginia and Louisiana State. I've got West Virginia winning this year. West Virginia's on a tear. They won a regional in Clemson. Clemson's a really out now. I don't want to say they're a really easy regional to win, but Clemson has a habit of not winning their own regionals outside of last year. They're kind of known for choking in their own regionals. If you go back and look at the history, out of the last 6 regionals Clemson's hosted over the last 10 years, they've only advanced out of one of them. But I will say Clemson is a solid squad, and there were some really good teams. There was a really decent Kentucky team in that regional. But for me, LSU at times had just shown the ability to kind of turn off. I mean, yes, they've got some phenomenal wins this season. They've got some huge wins in huge spots. But for me, especially those Little Rock games for me, especially both those Little Rock games, has just got it's given me reason for pause, just because they kind of shut off. I know they were able to kind of bring it back and one, but they seem to turn their brain off. And in my opinion, West Virginia is a better team than Little Rock, and so a much stronger team. Whereas they let Little Rock score 5-6, a much better team that could be 7, 8, 9, 10 and could make too much of an insurmountable lead. So for me, that's why I've got West Virginia coming out of that super regional.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said there. I'm a little bit more high on LSU than maybe you are, but it's very possible that West Virginia comes away from this super regional, especially with like some of the not lackluster, just like questionable performances that LSU had and close wins. Um, I think if West Virginia is able to once they get like that, if they're able to get that like first win in, whether it's game 1 or game 2, I definitely see them winning out the stretch in game 3, just because I have questions about LSU being able to finish out like long series that go a little bit long. Like in my opinion, I got LSU winning game 1, but I feel like West Virginia, with their back against the wall, can win game 2 and then come back in a game 3 win. So I got West Virginia winning this super regional, and yeah, going on to the Auburn super regional. I'm not gonna lie, I just have very mixed opinions because on one hand, I feel like a lot of people are shorting Coastal Carolina a little bit too much, like kind of doubting them and their abilities. But on the other hand, Auburn's like kind of quarreled any like suppressed any doubts that I have about them. Really showed out in their regional, and I feel like they're able to, if they're able to like continue that momentum, I see them handily taking care of Coastal Carolina. So I have Auburn moving on.
Yeah, I have Auburn moving on as well. I do think Coastal Carolina may cause a little bit of trouble for them. I do feel like things could get interesting. I can definitely see this needing a game 3, but ultimately, I think Auburn will take this one. So I've got Auburn in that regional.
Last super regional we have is the Fayetteville, Arkansas super regional. I have Arkansas taking this one. I have too many questions about Tennessee. Uh, Granted, able to take care of business against Wake Forest, but I just feel like Arkansas's bats and their pitching ability is a lot stronger than Tennessee's. So I have Arkansas winning this one.
I do too. Tennessee peaked. Tennessee is another one of those teams that peaked kind of too early in the season. And ever since then, like since that peak, there's just been mounting questions. So for me, I've got Arkansas. They're a solid baseball team. They're built on great principles, and they're historically dominant. So I've got Arkansas here.
So that's going to
So
sum up our analysis for the College Baseball World Series as of right now. Gareth, did you want to get into some of your big takeaways from this weekend?
So, first of all, my big takeaway, well, one big takeaway I like to point out that I feel like certain people aren't aware of is particularly in these I'll call college baseball a low revenue sport because I know it makes some money. Particularly in these low revenue sports, a lot of people that a lot of people don't pay attention to until the postseason. They don't realize how good some of these low major to mid major teams are. And I'm here to point out and say that the gap between Power Five adjacent, mid major, and low major, particularly in these sports. And I'm saying this as someone who, I had the advantage to observe this in person because my school was one of those weird schools where we're Power Five in some sports, Power Five adjacent in others, and then low to mid major in others. And I will say, particularly in these not low to non revenue sports, the gap between Power Five and mid major is very narrow. And particularly if you read a lot of literature around college baseball, the gap between Division One, Division Two, and even JUCO is very, very slim. It's very, very slim. Like it's the narrowest of margins. It just comes down to consistency sometimes. So,
And
with
even
that being said,
grades.
and even grades, a lot of the kids who play in JUCO either got into some trouble, got kicked off a team, or they just had like they struggle with grades. Like, do you know how many of NC State's players came from JUCO? Like a lot of our seniors this year, the majority of them are from JUCO.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, I'm gonna get to obviously. There's one thing I want to talk about before I hop into my really egregious take, and I want to know your thoughts. The Florida coach incident. All right. So for those of you who don't know, there's an incident with the Florida coach. Just for whatever reason, that ECU game got pushed back for an hour. I know the Auburn regional, it could have just been like rules. I know in the Auburn regional for NC State, there was a mandatory hour and a half between the games, just so the next officiating crew could come in and kind of like do their pregame stuff. Teams could properly warm up again. I'm not sure if any of that was in play in this regional, but the Florida coach, there's videos of him just ripping the Coastal Carolina AD a new one. And I don't think that's professional. But the one that really kind of pissed me off was the grounds crew. He went after the grounds crew for some reason. There wasn't a video of that, but I've seen articles and like headlines of him going after the grounds crew. And if that's true, like I lose all sympathy for Florida because you're going after like the grounds crew. Really, Like, come on. Now, I will say creators online have been talking about this, like, saying if this is how, SEC coaches act, and these are creators who have kids who are in positions that could feasibly make it to an SEC school. They're like, I don't know if I'd want my son or daughter playing for an SEC school. Now, I will say, I went to a school. I'll reference my school again. I'm not going to say the name. If you really want to find it, you can find another video. And that's for people who don't know. Most people probably will know the school I went to. But interacting with certain people in the athletic department there, hearing other athletes at this school talk about it, because, like I said, the nice thing about the school is Power 5 in some sports, adjacent in other sports, mid-major in others. Just how they said SEC coaches interacted with other people was just kind of like a sense of entitlement and like better than you. And like it wasn't like a swagger like that they like, obviously it's the SEC, they can walk around with that, but they're like it was almost kind of like they treated people disrespectfully. Like there were certain coaches at my school that talked about that, even though they were mid-major in that sport, they went to summits. They talk about how kind of disrespectful the SEC coaches were. So I don't know if you have anything to add about this. And I know not all schools have that like kind of SEC entitlement where they treat people like shit when stuff doesn't go their way. But I mean, and I know not I'm not saying SEC fans, I'm just saying kind of like the personnel of these schools. I'm not sure if you have anything else to add. I just figured it'd be something that cool topic of conversation we could bring up.
I mean, it's something that's I've kind of seen a little bit, but granted, I'm not as well versed into some of the other aspects of college sports as maybe you may have. I know you might have some personal horror stories from coaches and stuff talking about other athletes and coaches from the SEC. I only have an outside in perspective, and from my perspective, I do see that there are some aspects of like the SEC that has a little bit of an arrogance to them. Some of it may be warranted. Like for football, like we can clown the SEC entitlement, and it's fun like for like playoffs and stuff like that. But if I'm hearing these same stories coming from like more like different sports and kind of like a toxic culture that is like surrounding some of these like SEC teams and like uh, it's something that I see and I hear and I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of just because like I feel like this air of arrogance is something that's not very conducive to a good environment for athletes. And I feel like I just don't like entitlement in general. Like, I don't like it when, whether in like the outside sports world or inside the sports world, where you walk around with an undue arrogance because of who you're associated with. And I feel like it's something that needs to be addressed. And I'm not saying like, oh, all SEC people are like this. I hear great things from other programs that are very well run, uh, for prioritizing like religion, faith, and incorporating that into athletics is something that like I'm a fan of. But if you're doing it in a negative way that creates a toxic environment, I think it feels like moments like these need to be called out, and we need to call for our coaches to do better. And I'm not necessarily too worried about like the fans. Like obviously, like fan culture is something that is very toxic and needs to be kind of addressed. Like you see it in like the SEC and like other big conferences with like toxic online dialogue or unruly behavior at games. That's something that I'm not necessarily a fan of. But what you can control is the environment of your program. And moments like these, I feel like we need to hold people accountable, not in like the anybody needs to lose their job, but I feel like
Yeah.
setting a precedent and saying like, hey, this is something that we don't want reflecting our university. I feel like goes a long way, and holding coaches accountable while like still giving them like authority and like
Yeah,
saying like, hey, we're not telling you what to do, but like, hey, just don't yell at a minimum wage groundskeeper. Like that's just not a good look on anyone, regardless of what conference you're affiliated with and how you may go about in like life. But that's the only opinion I have. And granted, it's just an outsider's in perspective. I'm not too into some of the like ins and outs of other aspects of the SEC. Uh, and I know you probably have more experience. Granted, you never swam for an SEC school, but you were in kind of that bubble when it comes to like the swim world. Like you were explaining to me, like the swim world is a very small world. I imagine that's the same for like a lot of other uh, non-revenue sports. And I feel like these stories need to be listened to, and I just kind of do my due diligence in listening and trying to understand.
yeah. So now, my final point, in which it's a talking point. Now, you can we can clip it and make this funny, but how do I say this? Um, the Big Ten baseball. You haven't had a men's college World Series appearance since 2019. You only have 25 total appearances all time. Most recently, Michigan. Do you know the most recent College World Series appearance since Michigan?
Uh, no.
1967 Ohio State.
67? I was going to say something like 83 or something like that.
Well, sorry, that was Ohio State. That's my bad.
Yeah.
Ohio State's was 1967, Minnesota was 1977, Indiana in 2013, Illinois in 1952, Iowa 1972, Michigan State 1954. Now, I will say the Big Ten and ACC have the same amount of College World Series titles at 6. But when we talk about this stuff, I've been doing some research and I was looking at, schools that have, the most College World Series appearances. Obviously, SEC has the most with over 100. In second place is the now defunct Pac-12. Third place is the ACC. Now, I will say, what was funny is, who has the same amount of College World Series appearances as the Big Ten? And this is no disrespect to this conference. In fact, this is an argument I'm making for this conference. The Big West. The Big West also comes in with 29 College World Series appearances and more recent national championships than the Big Ten. So, I'm here to propose not to take away the Big Ten's power conference status because, they could. I know they're historically not as good and they're having a down year this year. But I say, with the Pac-12 gone and will officially being gone, I say we give that fifth power conference spot to the Big West. I'm just saying UC Irvine, Cal State Fullerton, California's CSUN, Bakersfield. Those are all college baseball household names. I'm just saying they deserve it. They consistently get teams in. They get teams to Omaha. I mean, they practically have the same success as the Big Ten, and the success is more recent as well. I'm just saying the Big West deserves that. And I'm not saying they need to be Power 5 in all sports. I'm saying this can be similar to a situation like my alma mater. Like Power 5 in certain sports, not so much in others. So I say, give me a Big West power conference. They deserve power conference treatment now. Yes, they have a little bit of a down year this year. Yes, but they still had teams like University of California, Irvine, Um, they had Cal Poly in the tournament. Cal Poly made some noise, but and all I'm saying is, I know obviously they didn't have a team advance to the super regionals this year, but I'm just saying if we allow them to have more teams, then they'll have a bigger chance. And I know they probably need to prove themselves first, but if we really want if we really want to get into the nitty gritty, we could say the Big Ten doesn't deserve that power conference spot in baseball too. I'm not saying we need to immediately make them Power Five, but I'm just saying we need to give the Big West more power conference considerations. That's all I'm saying out of that Big West. And I'm sure you'd be inclined to agree. And I think there's other conferences that I think we need to give more respect that I consider, Power Five adjacent. Sunbelt baseball. Honestly, on certain days, I think it could be Power Five. Sunbelt baseball.
Hmm.
Very similar Power Five, certain sports group five, and others. I'm not sure what you think about this, but I think it speaks volumes that they have the same amount of Omaha appearances and almost identical national championships between the Big West and the Big Ten. I'm
I
just
think the
saying.
Big Ten's the biggest frauds in the nation, in my opinion. Like I'm going to go a little bit more like gung ho than you, because I know you're trying to like play both sides. Like, oh no, we need to like. I'm not saying we need to like get rid of their power conference status, but I'm sorry if you poached like half the West Coast and you're only able to get one team into the super regionals, you're frauds.
And you
You're
took the best
frauds.
Pac 12 teams, too.
You took the best Pac-12 teams and somehow they got worse. They by osmosis, by having to play Ohio State and Rutgers, they just like took up this culture of just not being good baseball teams anymore. Like I'm sorry, they're bad. They're like the Big Ten. I'm sorry, I don't consider you a Power Five conference when it comes to baseball. Like just baseball. I don't think that's a hot take to have. Like recent success has been kind of mid. Like I can't think of a time. Like granted, I'm a little bit more new to like college baseball as opposed to like basketball and football. I only really started getting into college baseball, let's say around like 2020, 2019-ish. Like that I feel like that was like kind of like a turning point for college baseball in my opinion. I don't know what happened. It might have been the NC State effect or something like that. Like there was like a cultural shift that has like started to happen with baseball. I don't remember a time where I've been like, "Oh, dang. Let's turn on the Big Ten network and see what baseball is going on." Most Big Ten baseball that I have watched has been against my will when I was in a gym in South Bend trying to like work out, and I'm being uh, tortured with having to see Big Ten baseball on the TV. Like it is not a fun experience at all. Like it's not as fun. I like if you want to get into like power conferences, like pound for pound. Let's say pound for pound. Like if you take money into account, you take appearances, like and consistent success. Like the Big Ten has more money and more revenue, but they just consistently underperform. And I feel like that needs to be kind of slighted against them. Like the Big West and Sun Belt is able to perform at your level with lesser money and, in theory, lesser talent. And I consider like if I had to rank like college baseball conferences right now, you'd be hard pressed for me to put them in the top five. I'd probably go SEC one. I'll bite and then put ACC at two. But like if we're talking this year, I might put ACC. I'm an ACC homer, so I'll put that aside and concede for the clip. Okay, SEC one, and then ACC two. Honestly, I'm pretty sold on like the Big 12, so put them there. Um, And then like after that, like it's hard to like really kind of vouch for the Big Ten as much. Like you got the American, they're performing pretty solid. You got like the Sun Belt, like all these other teams. Like granted, you might have like some top heavy stuff when it comes to like UCLA and Oregon, if you want to consider them top heavy. But like we've just seen, like kind of fraudulent. USC kind of fraudulent. Washington extremely fraudulent. Missed the tournament, deservedly so. But I don't know. I have a hard time putting them at 4 or 5, especially if you know the dominance that is the American. I probably put American at 4, if I'm being honest. You got ECU, you got
What about the
UTSA, you get
two-team Pac-12?
2-team Pac-12. No, 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 no. Like, well, technically, like Oregon State's independent. So,
Yeah,
and I think Washington State was like, are they Big West now or something? Like
I think it might be West Coast Conference.
West Coast Conference. Yeah, but I don't know. Like even Conference USA, you could make the argument Conference USA is a better baseball conference than the Big Ten, in my opinion. If you're just looking at the entirety of the conference and you take into account like okay, like pound for pound, you know. Like I try to do like a pound for pound thing because obviously like Dallas Baptist doesn't have like the money that Ohio State has, but
Yeah.
Ohio State sucks at baseball, and like I don't know. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
No, it's definitely very valid. I'm definitely thinking we could like not there would be warranted to lose power conference status. I mean, we did it to the American.
I don't
We
know.
did it
The
to the
American,
American.
and as it pertains to baseball, the American's more valid of the baseball conference.
Indubitably, yes.
Indubitably. Indeed.
But no, I think that'll do it for college baseball for right now. Should we? Where do you want to proceed next?
Let's just do some brief overviews of the Stanley Cup and the NBA Finals.
Okay,
So
I'm down
going
for that.
into Stanley Cup, we covered it a little bit last week, but the game is set, and we have Florida versus Edmonton in a rematch of last year. I'm pretty excited for this NHL playoff. So far, Edmonton is going to be having home ice advantage. But if I'm being completely honest, I got Florida winning this one. I just feel like Florida has been on just an absolute tear and winning at a very high level. And they are a problem. They are an absolute problem. And I find them to be one of the hardest teams to stop. Granted, it might be a little bit of this early like Carolina losing bias, but I'm really sold on like Sam Reinhart and Alexander Barkov, just some really solid offensive players. And I look for them to have some really big performances going into this playoff series. But I'm not sleeping on Connor McDavid or uh, Leon Drastinelli, uh, um, very solid from Edmonton. I'm looking for a very good series, but I got Florida winning this one in 6.
I'm actually gonna go a different route. I've got the Oilers in 7. They've just been on a tear lately, and no matter what has happened to them, they've found a way to fight back. I mean, Stuart Skinner, while he's not one of the best goalies in the NHL, he's been on a similar to Bobrovsky. He's been on kind of a tear in the playoffs. Like he's been there in the playoffs. He's on a hot streak right now. I know his regular season record doesn't look too great, but I take Stuart Skinner. I don't know why. I'd probably still take Bobrovsky over Stuart Skinner, but I feel like he's close enough to where like the main issue in the Carolina series was our goalie was not quite, as prolific as, or Freddie Anderson is not quite as prolific as Bobrovsky. And that's not a problem. I mean, Freddie Anderson is coming back from life-threatening injuries over the past 2 years, so I'm not throwing shade at Freddie Anderson. I'm just saying, like, I just think Stuart Skinner matches up a little bit better with Bobrovsky, and then, like you said, I mean, Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, those are two big names. I mean, Connor McDavid hasn't been scoring as much as you'd like, but he's been. The main thing is he's been spreading it around. He's been spreading the love around. I mean, obviously teams key in on him being one of the best forwards in the NHL. Another one who I think is going to be a big one is Corey Perry. Corey Perry for the Oilers. He wasn't like their best player during the season. He kind of fell under the radar. But in the last 2 games, he's got 5 goals and 2 assists. So I'm looking for him to have a big breakout, or I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't call it breakout, but I'm looking for him to have good series against them. Over the last couple games, the Oilers are averaging 3.8 goals per game, 6.8 assists, 3.4 penalties, and 7.3 penalties per minute. So they're doing a great job of limiting penalties, which I think is going to be a big thing. Florida's really good on the power play, and I think limiting penalties is going to play into Edmonton's favor. And I'm curious to see how this kind of, this meshing up like that, Florida runs a very similar defense to the Carolina Panthers, or not Carolina Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes. It's it's in your face, very physical. Their offense is similar to the Hurricanes. I'm curious to see how that means kind of like the finesse of the Oilers and how they're going to be able to match up physically. Because, like I said, they don't commit a lot of penalty minutes. So I'm curious to see how that's going to affect Florida's approach in the game. So for me, like I said, I've got the Oilers in 7, but I definitely see a world in which the Panthers win. So.
Yeah, moving on to the NBA Finals, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Indiana Pacers. We kind of predicted this in the last podcast. Granted, it wasn't set in stone, but we pretty much saw the writing on the wall. But I am very excited for this series. You got two dominant teams going on absolutely incredible runs in their respective playoff appearances. Thunder just have been lights out, swept the Grizzlies, went to 7 against the Nuggets, but was able to take care of business and beat the Timberwolves 4-1, moving on to the finals with the Indiana Pacers. Just absolute domination against the Bucks and the Cavaliers, and pretty handedly took down the Knicks. Granted, Knicks were able to take 2 games away from the Pacers, but it was pretty much all Indiana from the beginning. I'm really excited for this finals, and it's like, as I've said before, I'm probably going to be paying attention to this finals more than the Stanley Cup. But just going into like some preview statistics, both Indiana and Oklahoma City have averaged 117 points a game in the playoffs. Oklahoma City has averaged 106 points allowed. They are 4th place in the postseason for defense. Field goal percentage is also a strong suit from both these teams. Indiana led the playoffs so far, shooting 49.7% field goals. Oklahoma City not too far behind them, 46.4. Rebounds is another big statistic that Oklahoma City has really been able to capitalize, averaging 44.3 rebounds. It's just a really interesting matchup that I'm excited to really see. I expect some big performances out of SGA and from Oklahoma City, and Tyrese Halliburton is a a really big key factor for the Indiana Pacers' success. I would love to see how he does in a matchup against a pretty defensively sound team. Overall, I have to give the edge to Oklahoma City as they've had a pretty historic playoff run and regular season performance. I have them winning this series in six, but I don't know. It could go either way. This is a prime example for me of an unstoppable object meeting an immovable force. And I'm just excited to see how this all goes down in these next couple days.
I agree. I'm kind of I'm in my limited ball knowledge of the NBA. I'm kind of giving the edge here to the Thunder. And while I do have faith in the to the Indiana Pacers, right? Indiana Pacers.
Hmm. Hmm.
I just think teams have to play almost perfect to beat the Thunder. And I'm not saying the Pacers don't have it in them, but and I'm not. The Pacers could be different. They may not have to play perfect, but where the Thunder have been a team where teams have to play perfect in order to beat them, and that's just a recipe for success. Like if you're a team where teams, even if they play their best, they still may not win. That's just like that team's so well built, and it's not even like they went out and they just bought all the best players. They developed this. This is ingrained in
Hmm.
who they are. This is ingrained in their play style. They've trained to be built up like this, and that's why they're kind of such a war machine when it comes to the NBA. So that's why I've got the. I know that's a pretty like low analysis take, but that's just from what I know, just from what I've been told from Thunder fans. Just they've built this up from nothing, and just from seeing score lines, watching highlights. That's why I've got Thunder in this one.
Nice. Well, moving on, I think we can cap this episode off with a preview of UFC 316 this weekend. The UFC is going to New Jersey, and is we have a pretty stacked card, and I'm pretty excited for it. Got some debuts, got some championship fights. We got a pretty stacked card, and I'm excited to jump into it. First pay-per-view matchup of the night, we have Kevin Holland versus Vincente Luque. Um, I'm really excited for this one. I am not going to hide my bias. I'm a Kevin Holland stan. I'm a Kevin Holland homer till I die. Um, Absolute mad lad. Love him to death. Very inconsistent. But able to get a solid win against Gunnar Nelson, and I really would like to see Kevin Holland win this one. He's if he's able to kind of capitalize on his past success, but like really kind of take away some of these uh, earlier like losses that he had. He had a loss earlier this year to Rainier De Ryder. I feel like if Kevin Holland is able to show up, take his fight seriously, it's a very winnable fight for Kevin. And I have him winning this one via knockout. It's been a while since he's been able to knock somebody out, and I just feel like he's due. And with Vicente being a striker, I just see this one staying up uh, above the ground. I feel like punches and kicks are going to fly in this one, and it's going to be a real slugfest. But I got Kevin Holland winning this one. Going on, we have a bantamweight matchup with Patty Mitch and Mario Batista. Patty Mitch is coming over from Bellator, and he has a very impressive resume, sitting at 20-1. I'm really excited to see how Patty Mitch does in the UFC. This is a very winnable fight for him. I'm excited to see how he does in his UFC debut. Um, but Mario Batista is just somebody you really don't want to cross. He's been on like a two, three, four, five, six, seven fight win streak in the UFC, and he's just somebody that you should really look out for. Um, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not too knowledgeable of Patty Mitch's game. Uh, Really impressive run in Bellator, though, from the fights that I have seen and the highlights that I have seen. So I could very well see him winning this fight. However, it's really up in the air. I'm excited to see how it goes. I want to kind of give like my uh, I give more kind of credit to Mario just because been in the UFC a little bit longer, really solid in all aspects, has really solid grappling, but also pretty consistent striking. I just don't know how Patty Mitch is going to do at the higher level. Could go either way, but I don't know. I want to give this one to Mario just because I don't know. I feel like first fight, I don't want to say like Patty's Patchy is going to be like scared or anything like that. I just know that Mario's been here before and should be able to take care of business, but I don't know. Like in theory, like Apache Mix should be able to take this one. So it's a real toss up for me. I'm literally going back and forth in my mind, but I'm giving this one to Mario. Moving on to middleweight, we have a matchup between Kevlin Gastelum and Joe Pfeiffer. Really interesting setup between these two. The thing is with Joe, has been on a little bit of a hiatus. Last fought in 301 last year, coming off a TKO win against Mark Andre Bar Bar Barelot. Sorry, I'm really bad with these French Canadian names, but this is just going to be an absolute slugfest between these two. We got a striker going up against a boxer in this one. This is going to be a real on the feet matchup between these two. But I think one thing that I really like is the takedown ability of Pfeiffer. Really shown some pretty solid takedown and takedown defense. So I feel like he has the advantage on the ground if it were to come to the ground. But Kevlin does have the significant strike advantage. I see this one going to Joe Pfeiffer, though. Just kind of has the overall more solid on all aspects of the standing and ground game. And I can see this one going to decision, but if it goes to decision, I got Joe Pfeiffer winning this one, which brings us to our two title fights of the night. We have Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. Juliana Pena, she's the women's bantamweight champion. Probably has like one of the most historic, just like this is very surprising for me. And Gareth and I were talking about this before the podcast. Juliana Pena is at plus 500. Kyla Harrison minus 800. Juliana Pena is a historic underdog as a reigning champion. I don't like all this. I feel like Julia Pena is getting like some unnecessary heat right now. She has just been she's been pretty consistent. Last loss was Amanda Nunez, but she did get a really solid win against Raquel Pennington to get the women's bantamweight title. And granted, there was some controversy behind it because it was a split decision, but I don't know. I feel like the Juliana Pena hate is a little bit too forced. We got Juliana Pena with her Brazilian Jiu Jitsu going up against Kyla Harrison in her Judo. I don't know. I just like this matchup more for Juliana Pena. I feel like a lot of people are kind of hopping on the Pena hate train, and I feel like it's very unwarranted. She's a very solid fighter, has some amazing wins to her name. Am I saying she's like the women's bantamweight goat? No, but she's extremely solid, and I feel like a lot of people just kind of maybe don't like her antics too much and just kind of stray away from her. But I don't know. I like there's something about it. I could see her getting a submission on this one and taking this one. If it does go to the ground, which I think it will be liable to do, Kyla Harrison has the ability with her judo to take Juliana Pena down, but I feel like I'm more confident in Juliana Pena's submission abilities. And I have Juliana Pena winning this one via submission. I think her grappling is something that people just don't put too much respect on, and her submission game is something that even got Amanda Nunez. So never count her out of a fight because she can always like slip in some type of submission that could really like catch you off. But after that, we have our main event of the night. We have bantamweight title fight in a rematch. We have Marab going up against Sean O'Malley. I'm not gonna lie, I like Sean O'Malley a lot. I think he's a great fighter. I just don't know if this division is for him, and I just think Marab is going to take this one. He won the first iteration of this fight and got a pretty solid win against Umar Nurmagomedov. Um, thing is, Marab's just overall extremely proficient in all aspects of fighting. Extremely good striker, but amazing takedown. I feel like a lot of people don't sleep on it, but like he's just very deadly on the ground game, and that's something that Sean O'Malley doesn't have. Sean O'Malley has the length and he has the striking ability, but Marab has striking ability and the ability to take an opponent to the ground. In this first iteration of the fight, I thought Sean O'Malley was going to win, and I was proven wrong because Marab was able to take that one in a contested fight. Like I'll say it wasn't like completely all Marab all day long. But I don't know. I just don't see him slowing it down against O'Malley. O'Malley really needs to get a knockout in this one if he wants to win, because I just see Marab taking this one in a decision. But my final like pick would be Marab winning this one. If Sean loses, I definitely have to see him like he probably needs to move up a weight class, like probably try his lick at featherweight or something like that because I don't know. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't have much insight to offer. I know the running joke for us is that Garrick when a TikToker fights, but I will say the connection I have to this is legitimate. I will say he is from my friend's hometown in Montana. That's the only reason why I like am impartial. Oh, I am partial towards Sean O'Malley's because he apparently was like a few years ahead of my friends in high school, and I remember watching his fight 2 years ago, and it was fun. But I'm looking forward to this. It's Sorry, the cat was making noise. Or as I say, sorry, that was just the cat. Um, but it's something I'm interested in is I didn't see the initial fight of this, but I'm curious to see how like the discrepancy in their reach with both their kicks and just their reach in terms of punches, and then just the height difference is going to affect it. Like I know you said, Marab's ground game is a lot more there. So, like you said, if it goes to decision, I've got Marab. But I think if, like you said, if O'Malley wants to win, it's going to have to be by like knockout. Like I don't see like if the match starts to drag on, I feel like that's going to play in Marab's favor. Like Sean, I think he's going to have to act pretty fast. Like it's going to have to be. I forget what fight it was, but his first kind of big fight that was 2 summers ago. I forget what it was. It wasn't 306. It was like it's similar to that fight where he just kind of jumped on the guy and just kind of went to town and like
Yeah,
just kind of
Aljamain Sterling. That was a really good fight for him. I mean, if he's able to channel some of that Aljamain Sterling energy, like you can never count him out. But like, I just don't know. Like, Rob's a different beast.
yeah. Oh, I'm aware. He's like very good.
It's not that Aljamain Sterling was bad. It's just I think he was a little bit. He had his run, and it just kind of has been a little bit falling, like kind of descending as most fighters do. But Aljamain's a little bit past his prime, and Merab, granted, believe very good. I believe he trains with Merab, but that's why they like refuse to fight because they train at the same gym, and that's kind of like a no go. But Merab has just kind of been on an absolute tear, and I don't know. I mean, I would like to see a world in where O'Malley wins, but I kind of got to go with my mind on this one, and I just think he's got it.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Hmm. I'm trying to think if I want to. I'll bring up a little bit of soccer. So I will say I'm not going to go in depth on the Premier League this week, but I will say a trend was recently broken in soccer. PSG, for those of you who don't know, is kind of they are the one of the newer teams in the French league, and they are started by essentially two billionaire businessmen because they want another team in Paris, and they paid like I forget if they paid to have this team like fast track to the top league, but that's been known to happen. And PSG's been kind of like known as like the money bags of the Ligue 1 for a while now, and they're kind of like the Yankees. Every time a team, whether it be a lower level team in France or like a lower level team anywhere else in the world, has a good player, they immediately buy them up. But I will say the one thing that has been elusive to them has been the Champions League title. No matter who they've had, no matter who they've had on that team, whether it be Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, like the whole 9 yards, they haven't been able to win it. But the 1 year where they don't have any of those stars, they win it. They finally are able to get that elusive Champions League. They've won French cups. They've won the French league. They've won other French, weird kind of side cups. But they've never been able to win the Champions League, and they finally did. Even Ada knew they won the Champions League, but not for the right reason. He knew they won the
Yeah.
Champions League because Paris is in fucking flames right now. Like they're acting worse than fucking Eagles fans. Like the joke was kind of that PSG fans weren't passionate because they got bought out. And, Paris FC is the real team in Paris, and PSG is just the fucking corporate sellouts. But apparently PSG does have fans, contrary to popular belief. So congratulations to PSG for winning their Champions League, winning their first Champions League. Not many teams can say they won one, but I will say, Chelsea still has two. There are shitty teams in England who haven't been in the Premier League in 40 years who still have more. Like Nottingham Forest, they have two. Although they're back in the Premier League and they're actually doing well this season, but they were in they dropped down to basically not pro for a while and they still had more than PSG.
Damn.
So that's what I'll say. I mean, but that's all I'll say about soccer for right now. Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Oh, we do have one shout out to make. Shout out to the Raleigh Red Oaks for winning their first Old North State League baseball game, 6-5 against the Danville Dairy Daddies. more to come on them later in the season. Hopefully, when I return back to North Carolina for whenever that is, Aiden and I will cover a game just specifically for Tobacco Road and Abroad. So, shout out to them. Hopefully, we can get some merch. We'll see about that. But
Raleigh Red Oaks, please sponsor us. Raleigh Red Oaks, if you hear us, please sponsor us.
Raleigh Red Oaks, please sponsor us.
Bro,
But no,
I'll commentate a game with Gareth. I don't care.
I will move home if you make us the official commentators for forever for this team. But no, with that being said, thank you for you guys for listening in. That'll be it for us tonight. Thank you for listening in. We really appreciate it. And we will see you next week with the breakdown of what will be the final 8 in the College World Series. And we will be headed to Omaha. Not us personally, but the show will be headed to Omaha.